Wow. Today puts new emphasis on what it means to say it's hot out there. This is FanView. Live from the Ram Cave, I'm Joe Terosian, and this is FanView, the July 22nd, 2024 edition, brought to you by Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident? Need help? Got questions? Call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. That's Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair, having some auto issues, get yourself some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. And of course, Granite Ridge Christian Camp, a place where your life can change. And that's where I was this past week. Bill, it is good to see you again too. Thank you for joining us. I was last week, of course, at camp. I told you guys I run the Outsiders camp program at Granite Ridge Christian Camp, and we had kids camp, 102 people there, and we had a fantastic week, and lives were changed. And so happy to be back doing this. Want to say a special thank you to you guys to let you guys know that it was Kistler Law that underwrote our ability to run camp this summer at Granite Ridge, our kids camp and our CIT Academy and our coming youth camp. It was by donation from Paul Kistler. Now, he's not going to ask for that to be told to everybody, but I feel like you guys need to know the sort of individuals we do deal with here. And we were blessed. And so it was a great camp. Happy to be here. We'll be here all this week. It might get a little shaky next week because I'm back at youth camp, but we are just working our way through. So happy to be back. No news was like, all the other news was president getting shot, Biden stepping down, all the drama that was happening, and just trying to stay on focus with sports. A little bit of football news, but what I thought was interesting that just seemed like some people were happy to talk about was Caitlin Clark in the All-Star game only scored 4 points. And they said, see, if you can shut her down. That's why she didn't belong on the All-Star team. Team USA was so focused on stopping Caitlin Clark, they forgot that she's a basketball player. And she distributed the ball to the tune of 10 assists, and her teammates went off. It showed the ineptitude of USA basketball that they could be beaten by a rookie like that who could just morph her game into where it's not about her, and she just distributed the ball. Hands down, I'm saying it right now, Caitlin Clark at this moment is the second best women's basketball player ever, right behind Cheryl Miller. And a lot of people didn't see Cheryl Miller. I saw Cheryl Miller. Cheryl Miller was great. And then right now it's Caitlin Clark. Maybe it changes in a few years, but I was really happy. I'm not a big women's basketball fan, not a big thing, but Caitlin Clark is pretty fantastic and everything. So I wanted to get that out of the way. Did my Rams homework this week. We're going to talk a little bit about Ram football and, of course, around the NFL and other places. USA Today put out their projections for overall standings and records. It's desperate dead period stuff, but at least that's a little more interesting than top 25 or 50 or 100 athletes of the 21st century and that sort of thing. And I don't feel like talking about Bronny James. Ooh, I got Bronny stuck in my throat. So before we get to that, let's look at a couple of Ram things here that I thought was interesting. Last couple of weeks I've been going over the roster for the Rams. 86 players on the roster, and we just started doing some breakdowns of what it looks like. 43 of the 86 players on the Rams roster are either from the SEC or schools in the South. I thought that was interesting. The Rams, of their 86 players on the roster, have only 6 players over the age of 30, which is pretty interesting, especially when you hear commentators talk about the Rams being old, and I just don't think they get it. Of the 86 players on the roster right now, 37 of them were undrafted free agents, right? Only 19 of the 86 players on the Rams roster have suited up for another team, and 8 of those are penciled in as starters. And then the one that was really interesting today when I broke it down, of the 86 players on the Rams roster, only 7 are from the late, rest in peace, Pac-12 conference. really interesting. The only player still on the Rams this year that played in a Pac-12 school that was on the roster last year was Quentin Lake, right? They did sign Colby Parkinson, so he's got NFL experience. They drafted Brennan Jackson and Joshua Carty, one from Stanford and Jackson, of course, from Washington State. And then they signed undrafted free agents Justin Dedich from USC, Cam Lampkin, Washington State, and the kid from the DT from Washington itself, Tuli Gasanoa. So there's only 7 players on the Rams roster that of the 86 that are from Pac-12 schools. I thought that was really fascinating because you wonder why the Pac-12 doesn't exist anymore. And it really looks like the Rams had no interest. There was a time there, Greg Gaines, Taylor Rapp. There was a time they were kind of drafting a lot of Washington players, but that's been few and far between. Fascinating, right? That only 4 of those players would be drafted or signed: Quentin Lake, Colby Parkinson, Brennan Jackson, and Joshua Carty, and the other 3. That is fascinating. 7 Pac-12 players on the roster of 86 of the Rams. Man, that's interesting. Also, I saw Bucky Brooks list his top 10 rosters in the NFL, and the Rams weren't in the top 10. Okay, great. Yeah, the Browns roster was considered better than the Rams. Okay, whatever. Saw Mike Florio speculating that Matthew Stafford could hold out until he gets his current contract deal reworked for more guaranteed dough. I think if Stafford was going to hold out, I think he would have done it earlier in the spring in some of the mini camps and the OTAs. Would he really start holding out now, especially since players don't play during the preseason, that they need all the reps they can get to get ready for the season? Now, I know Stafford's a veteran, but it just sounded like Florio was trying to stir things up. Now, could that happen? Anything's possible, but Florio has a track record of that's not so good, right? And again, Matthew Stafford is not looking for an extension. He's just looking for more guaranteed money, which tells us he's thinking he's going to play at least another 2 years after this one. And I think that's a good deal. And I'm sure they're just working out the specifics of it. It is not something to be worried about. Something that I would be worried about if I were the Rams is that Brandon Ayuk of the 49ers has requested a formal request to be traded since they haven't come up with a deal for him. And he's in his 5th and final year of a contract, and he wants to be traded. And I was really hoping the 49ers would sign him because Brandon Ayuk doesn't scare me. Brandon Ayuk is just another really good receiver in the NFL, and just about every team in the NFL has a really good receiver. And I want to see the 49ers pay him. I wanted them to give him 30 rocks a year. I want them to treat him like he's Justin Jefferson and then limit everything else they can do on the team. But, of course, John Lynch might be a little too smart for that. Hope not. But, yeah, I don't want to see Brandon Ayuk traded. I want him in the lineup. I want him in the lineup when the Rams play him because he's just another guy, a really good player, but he doesn't put the fear of the Lord in you. Does he really? Manny Correa, what's up? Thanks for clicking on. I can see your name there. Guys, we'll also get to questions and stuff halfway through the show. You guys know the routine. But don't you want to see the 49ers sign Brandon Ayuk? Sign him to a long contract and then be forced to deal Deebo Samuel. Because Deebo Samuel hurts the Rams more than Brandon Ayuk does. Now, until Brandon Ayuk scores 4 touchdowns in week 3 against the Rams, then I'll change my tune and I'll apologize. But right now, 49ers, Niners sickness. I know you watch this podcast. Please sign Brandon Ayuk. Please do. I want you hamstrung with that salary cap. All right. Around the NFL and other places, speaking of contracts, Jordan Love, it came out today, is a no-go without new dough. He says he's not showing up without a new contract. And, 49ers, not the 49ers. I think he's been the good soldier for a while in Green Bay. If it works, I think you should pay him and lock him down, because if he plays the way he did, if he grows from where he was last year, you're locked up for another 10 years with a solid quarterback. He is this perfect mesh of Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. And even in the good and the bad, the last pass he threw in the playoffs last year looked very much Brett Favre-like, where he forced it and he didn't have to. But Jordan Love, yeah, he's good. And the Packers, I can't imagine all the stuff they did this offseason and then not, taking care of him and his contract. And I think they will. Dolphins edge, who just signed for 1 year, $9 million, Shaq Barrett, has retired. He retired, I think it was on Saturday. I never was enamored too much with Shaq Barrett. He had that huge season in 2019. Then he got the fat contract after the Super Bowl year, and he never really produced. In 2019, he had 19 and a half sacks. The remainder of his career, 2020 through last season, he had 22 sacks. I just think he was a guy who caught fire briefly, and he got fat money. An undrafted free agent. He was an undrafted free agent, and he made career earnings 78 rocks. Good for him, right? Good for Shaq Barrett. I didn't think he was that great. But here's a guy that was a solid running back for 8 years in the NFL. His name's Kenyon Drake. He had signed with Green Bay this offseason, and he announced his retirement as well this past week. And Kenyon Drake, 8 seasons in the NFL, 3,800 yards, 33 TDs, 218 catches, 8 touchdowns, third-round pick of the Dolphins, I think, out of Alabama. And he had a really, really nice career, and he should be better remembered, right? But, man, it's just another case of what happens in the NFL is these guys come and they go, right? They come and they go as they come and they go, Hobbs. They come and they go. As Max Mercy says, they come and they go and they come and they go. Cam Akers has signed with the Texans after I believe he passed his physical with the Vikings, but they didn't work out a contract. Cam Akers signed with the Houston Texans. He'll be behind Joe Mixon, and former Ram backup offensive lineman Chandler Brewer was recently cut by the Jaguars. Speaking of the Packers, they extended Kenny Clark 3 years, 64 rocks. And this one's interesting because I felt like the Packers were looking a little old on defense last year, but they had a great year. But, man, Kenny Clark, what did he see, about 6'3", 320, something like that? He had a good season. He's not great, but they're giving him 64 rocks over 3 years. Now, I don't know how they're going to break it down, but that's something like 18, what is that, like 21 rocks a year for a guy that's not named Aaron Donald in the center of your defense. And he's heading into his 9th season. He's 29 years old, I think. First-round pick out of UCLA in 2016, and I'm happy for him. But that feels a little pricey for a DT named Kenny Clark, who's solid, who's really good. He's not great. Anyway, speaking of the NFC North, former Bears safety Eddie Jackson, 30, has signed with the Ravens. And that one makes sense. A lot of these safeties, John Johnson recently signed, Jamal Adams recently signed with the Titans. No one wants to pay these safeties anymore. So it's always surprising when someone gives them serious money. Okay, around the NFL and other places, Joe Mauer, Todd Helton, Jim Leland, and who was the fourth guy that got introduced into the Hall of Fame this weekend? I like Joe Mauer. I like Todd Helton. But the idea that these guys got in before someone like Steve Garvey is ridiculous. Mauer had a great batting average, great OBP, but he had less than 150 home runs in his career, less than 1,000 RBIs. And if he gets in, sure. He had a couple of monster seasons. If he gets in, okay, great. But was he ever the dominant guy? I'm going to throw out for Mauer out there. What about a guy like Dave Parker? I mean, there were years there where Dave Parker was considered the best player in baseball. And you'd be hard-pressed to say Garvey wasn't in your top 5, if not top 8 players during the 70s, right? But Garvey's not in. Todd Helton played at Coors Field for 17 years. In 2005, he hit 20 home runs. And he played through 2013, so he played another 8 seasons or so, and he never hit 20 home runs again playing in Coors Field. And again, I'm not arguing that Helton can't be in the Hall of Fame, but ahead of a Steve Garvey or a Dave Parker? I mean, these guys were the best players in the game in a different era. Garvey was in 10 All-Star games, 272 home runs, was a different era, 1,300 RBIs, something close to, 2,600 hits, repeated Gold Glove winner until Keith Hernandez put his name on the position. And in postseason, Garvey hit 338 with 11 home runs and 31 RBIs. Oh, and for the nerds, he had a 361 OBP. And I understand younger sports writers and everything and stuff, but I don't know. When you say Joe Mauer, you go Hall of Famer, right? Todd Helton, Hall of Famer. Let me tell you something. Before Garvey retired, Garvey was a certain Hall of Famer. And I think when people were talking about Dave Parker, they were saying certain Hall of Famer. So anyway, wanted to throw that out there. By the way, Mets are 50-47. They're like a game out of the wild card spot. And if you think I'm talking a little bit of baseball now, wait until the postseason starts. And if the Mets are in it, I'm going to drive people crazy. I'm going to make the Ram Cave the Met Cave for a while. All right, I'm Joe Terosian. I was a sports writer for 21 years. And now I do FanView, thanks to our sponsors at Kistler Law and Temple City Auto. And so I also write books. My books are on Amazon, and you can find them there. Just type in Joe Terosian. And I appreciate the support. You guys are buying my books, and it really helps the show, and it really helps me. And let me know if you do. Send me a picture if you do. And your support through the books and through Kistler Law, the support there allows me to do my day job. I pastor a small church in Burbank called Burbank Faith Virtual, and we have a channel right here on YouTube, Burbank Faith Virtual, burbankfaithvirtual.com, Burbank Faith Virtual all across social media, and you could check us out in those places. I did see a couple of questions pop in, and I'll see what Aaron. Bill, good to see you, Manny. Okay, Steve Ramirez, you just said it. I still can't believe Mauer is in the Hall of Fame. He had some really good years. I'm not going to argue that. Maybe a Veterans Committee guy down the road. But Steve, you were around when we were kind of the same age. When you talk Dave Parker during his like 5 years, 6 years of dominance there, when you talked Steve Garvey, these guys were Hall of Famers. No one doubted they were Hall of Famers. And Todd Helton, I don't get it. I just don't get it. Willie Bowen, how come Jack Snow, Henry Eller, Jack and Jim Youngblood, Nolan Cromwell, and Fred aren't in the NFL Hall of Fame? Jack Youngblood is in the Hall of Fame. I can say that. Jack Snow, he didn't play in the big game. He had over 300 catches in an era when it was 3 yards in a cloud of dust, but he didn't play in the big game. He didn't play in a Super Bowl. He needed to be in a Super Bowl. And I think, he could be somebody compared to a Fred Biletnikoff if he played in some more high-profile games and the Rams had won them. He had better speed, I think, than Biletnikoff. But yeah, that is a shame. Henry Eller played when the rules were lessened after the 78 season. And so he excelled there for a long time. But the glut of receivers, this is what's keeping Torrey Holt out. There's just a glut at receiver. In another generation, Henry Eller probably would have gone in already. But he's going to be someone they go back and review. Jim Youngblood's not going in. There's just not a prayer for Jim Youngblood going in. Anything other than a Rams Ring of Honor, if the Rams ever get around to doing something to establish, to remember their veterans. Jim Youngblood's not getting in. Doesn't mean I don't want Jim Youngblood. It's just that he's not getting in. Nolan Cromwell, look at Eddie Meter, right? Look at Eddie Meter. You look at Eddie Meter from what, 59? Was it 59 to 70? Was it 58 to 70? He was one of the best safeties in football. I think he's on the all-decade team in the 60s. Rams didn't go to win any big games. I think he appeared in 2 playoff games, didn't win them, wasn't in a Super Bowl, didn't have that high-profile moment. Rams win Super Bowl 14. Cromwell picks off, turns that pick six that he dropped from Bradshaw into a pick six. Rams take that game. They extend the lead from what, 19-17 to 26-17. It's a different world for Nolan Cromwell. I really believe that. But he dropped it, and the Rams lost that game. Fred's not getting in because Merlin Olsen and Jack Youngblood are in. That's just the way it is. I like Lawrence McCutcheon, Willie. You're not going to get any bigger Ram fan for Lawrence McCutcheon than me, but he's not gonna go. He's just not. He was a really good back in his era, but he's not going to go. Maybe if the Rams picked off a Super Bowl appearance in 74 and 76, maybe in 77. Maybe if they won 2 of 3 or just made 3 appearances and won 1, and then he gets to throw a touchdown pass at the end of his career in Super Bowl 14. But as it is right now, 4,000-yard seasons in 5-year span, and that 1 year he didn't get it was 911 yards, and he set out the last game. I think that was against the Steelers in 75, but ran for 202 yards the week after that. Yeah, it's a bummer. But loved answering those questions. Yeah, but yeah, that's a bummer. Okay, Steve Ramirez confirms Jack Youngblood's in the Hall of Fame. Willie Bowen says thank you. Steve Ramirez, Isaiah Robertson has a better chance than Youngblood, but the Rams' lack of playoff success limits Isaiah. Absolutely. And, we just talked about Isaiah Robinson last week. Now 2 weeks ago, is we brought up that, after he left the Rams after the 78 season, he was a 4-year starter for the Bills. Played in a couple of playoff games for them, never missed a game for Chuck Knox while Chuck Knox was coaching in Buffalo. And he wasn't All-Pro or Pro Bowl there in Buffalo, but he was still a competent player for 12 years in this league. And he was a standout in the NFL. He was a standout. He was gold standard outside linebacker. And if you asked me, and I know I'm biased, I always got sick and tired of hearing how great Jack Ham was. Jack Ham. I'm going to stick with Isaiah. Isaiah was a bad dude. And I think it was somebody here also mentioned that Isaiah took a tumble in perception when he got trucked and dirt roaded by Earl Campbell in 78. But if we're going to do that, there's a lot of players that should be, held back from Canton consideration because Earl Campbell trucked a lot of people. There we go. Okay, so we worked our way through some of those questions there. Got through the commercial. Guys, if you have more questions, throw them at me. There is not a whole lot of Ram update more than I gave you. They're getting ready to start camp. And if any of you go to LMU, right now I am not scheduled to go to LMU. I don't have the contacts there to make that thing happen just yet. But if you guys go, let me know what it looks like. All right, a few other things around the NFL here. John Harbaugh says Lamar Jackson will go down as the greatest quarterback in NFL history. And what was equally gross was hearing Colin Cowherd defend Lamar Jackson with the whole rant of it's hard to win playoff games. Duh, it's hard to win playoff games. That's why the great ones win playoff games. And I think Lamar Jackson's a great leader. I think he's got a great work ethic. I think he works hard. But Lamar Jackson is just not a great quarterback because he's an average thrower. He's an average passer of the ball. He's not a great passer of the ball. And we keep seeing that every year in the playoffs. I wouldn't be upset if he picks one off and he wins a Super Bowl. Good for Lamar Jackson. But the idea that we're calling him great or that he's going to go down, really? Really? Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, who are you taking? Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, who are you taking? Lamar Jackson or Jordan Love right now, who are you taking? I'm taking Jordan Love. I think there's more upside. Lamar Jackson, Matthew Stafford. We know that answer, right? If he could stay healthy, I think Joe Burrow over Lamar Jackson, right? There's just a lot out there that I don't dislike Lamar Jackson, but he's got to get it done with his arm. And he made some bad throws. He just makes bad throws in the postseason. I hope it works well for him, though. All right, USA Today released their projections for NFL records, and I thought I'd work through this and just get your thoughts on some of this. In the AFC West, they got the Chiefs 13-4. No problem there. There's no issue there. Chargers 9-8. That's really given a great effect to Jim Harbaugh, right? Good for him there. All right. I don't think there's any problem there. I thought it was interesting. They got the Raiders at 6-11 and the Broncos at 4-13. I think Sean Payton needs to have bigger strides than 4-13. If he goes 4-13 in his second year, I think people are going to have a problem. If the Broncos finished 8-9, 9-8, and just narrowly missed the playoffs and maybe developed Bo Nix a little bit, I think people would be fine. But the Broncos at 4-13, that's not good. That's not good, and I'm not buying. I think you can bump them up a little bit, and that's, of course, being gracious to the Chargers, seeing the Chargers go 9-8. But I do think there will be a Harbaugh effect. AFC North, Bengals 11-6, Browns 10-7, Ravens 10-7, Steelers in last place at 9-8. I don't know how Steeler fan Rob feels about that. But I'll tell you this. I have a hard time putting the Browns ahead of anybody in that division because I don't trust Deshaun Watson. There you go. I just don't trust Deshaun Watson. Do you trust Deshaun Watson? I don't trust Deshaun Watson. Also, Joe Burrow. When was the last time Joe Burrow finished a season? I think the last time Joe Burrow finished a season on the field was Super Bowl 56, right? Oh, and by the way, that was when he was mugged by Aaron Donald. So how does that work? How do the Bengals, what do they do? Is it Jake Browning? So we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt. If he plays, they'll go 11-6. I just don't see Deshaun Watson playing the season. I don't see them being equal to the Ravens. And if Russell Wilson could play, I still think the Steelers are better than the Browns. I do. I just do. I'd love to hear it. I don't even know what's the status on Nick Chubb right now. That would be interesting. AFC South. Colts are 11-6, winning the division. Jaguars 10-7. Texans 9-8. Titans 6-11. No, right now, because I don't know what's up with Anthony Richardson and Gardner Minshew is gone. I got to see Anthony Richardson play before I make the Colts division champs. I like their draft. I like their offseason. I like Shane Steichen, but I'm going to go with the Texans right now. CJ Stroud, a year better, a better running back, an experienced receiver to go along with Nico Collins. That's Stephon Diggs. This is a team that looks like it's ready to make a real serious move. They improved their offensive line. Yeah, I like the Texans in this division. I like them better than 9-8. Jaguars are interesting. I think the Jaguars could surprise everybody, but they have to do it first. I'm just, that collapse last year wasn't a good look. And but I think there's less mystery to the Jaguars than the Colts because, again, I think Trevor Lawrence has shown he can play in the postseason. Anthony Richardson has shown he can play a few games. And the Titans, I think the Titans, they're an interesting watch. I think they're going to be better. I think they're going to be a little bit dangerous. They're trusting in Will Levis. They've made some moves. It'll be interesting to see. But I do think they're a third at best, a fourth place team. I don't think they're quite ready yet. In the AFC East, USA Today has the Jets at 12-5, the Bills at 10-7, the Dolphins at 8-9, the Patriots at 3-14. Well, I think we can all agree at the Patriots being 3-14 or something in the vicinity thereof. The Jets at 12-5. Aaron Donald for years had a more stable offensive line, a better offensive line, a more stable organization, better coaching, and he only got to one Super Bowl. And right now they have USA Today projects with Aaron Rodgers. I'm sorry, not Aaron Donald. Aaron Rodgers. They project with Aaron Rodgers, the Jets going 12-5, having the second best record in the AFC. It's the Jets. It's the Jets. Tyron Smith. Is Tyron Smith going to be healthy all year? Is Morgan Moses going to be healthy all year? What do they got going on? I like Breece Hall. I like Garrett Wilson. I like their draft picks and everything, but it's the Jets. And I would not put the Jets ahead of the Buffalo Bills. I just would not do it. I think we're going to find out that the production for Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis last year and over these last few years wasn't because of Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. It was about that dude named Josh Allen. So I like the Bills winning that division. Let's drop the Jets 2 slots. I'm not a big Dolphin fan. I was surprised they got the Dolphins projected at 8-9. If you're projecting the Dolphins at 8-9, then when the Dolphins give that fat contract to Tua, which I don't know if they have yet. Have they given the fat contract to Tua yet? If they give that fat contract to Tua, then the USA Today has to be all over the Dolphins for giving a fat contract to Tua because they're projecting the Dolphins 8-9. That's with Tua. You can't go 8-9. You just can't. With everything they've done, you can't go 8-9. But I think they could because I'm not a big Tua fan. Good person, but I'm not a big fan. NFC East, Eagles 10-7, Cowboys 8-9, the Taxkins 7-10, the Giants 4-13. This isn't a great division. This is not a great division. I think the Commanders can win a game or two more. I like the Cowboys at 9-8, 8-9. We'll just leave the Giants off to the side. But I don't trust the Eagles. I don't. I need to see another year out of Jalen Hurts, and I don't think Saquon Barkley is that great. I think he's a good back. I just don't think he's great, right? You know, he's Jim Belushi, not John Belushi, okay? And I just don't think he's great. NFC South, Falcons 9-8, Saints 8-9, Bucks 8-9, Panthers 4-13. I think that's an improvement for the Panthers. But I really truly believe the Falcons, yes, are the best team in that division. But the Saints 8-9, I think the Saints are the team cruising for a bruising. I think the house of cards is going to fall finally. A lot of their key players are aging, and I don't think their coaching is good. And I think they're going to fall to 6-11. That's where I see the Saints. I can see the Falcons, the Bucks, and then the Saints and Panthers can battle it out for third place. NFC North, Green Bay Packers 13-4, Lions 11-6, Bears 9-8, Vikings 5-12. I can see the Vikings finishing in last. I don't know if they're 5-12 material. That would be some JJ McCarthy questions there. And if your team goes 5-12 after you give a massive contract to Justin Jefferson, why did you give that massive contract to a receiver when you could have spread it out and gotten more parts? Also, Jordan Addison got popped for a DUI. Heaven help me. Bears at 9-8. I see the Bears at 7-10. Maybe 8-9. I think there's just a lot of Caleb there that everyone's getting all amped up about, and we'll see. Here we go. Lions 11-6, Packers 13-4. I like the Packers, but I like the Lions better. I just do. I think they're better. I think they're better all the way around. I think they address their needs, and I like the Lions more like 12-5, and I like the Packers more 11-6. NFC West, they got the Seahawks at 5-12, Cardinals at 7-10, Rams at 10-7. 49ers at 13-4. All right. Let's see here. The Seahawks, yeah, I can see where they could take a tumble, and I also can see where the Cardinals are going to jump up. They've been doing a really good job, and that's the team that scares me going into 2025. I do like what they've done. I'm not a Kyler Murray fan, but I do like what they've done. But it comes down to the Rams and 49ers. I think we've talked about it here. We could project the Rams. We've projected the Rams being 13-4, at worst 11-6. I don't see the 49ers being 13-4. I think the 49ers are going to take a step back. I think to expect another healthy season out of McCaffrey, another healthy season out of Trent Williams is just really too much to ask. Trey Greenlaw is going to be out, right? And they're trying to get him back from his Super Bowl injury. They've got issues. They got issues at safety. They've got stuff going on there. And I do believe teams have now figured out Brock Purdy, right? And not that Brock Purdy's bad, but, there was that mystery for a while, and it's not a mystery anymore. I think the 49ers are taking a step back, and the Rams are taking a step up. Now, Rams go 11-6. Could the 49ers go 10-7? Yeah. Rams go 13-4. Could the 49ers go, 12-5? Yeah. I think the Rams win week 3. I think they lose later in the season to the 49ers. 49ers are still dangerous. They're still a playoff team. They can still beat the Rams, but I do struggle. I think their window is about that wide open. That's how wide open I think their window is. If they don't do it this year, it is completely closed. So please, John Lynch, give Brandon Ayuk a big fat contract and make all us Ram fans happy. Now, postseason and the playoffs, this one's kind of funny, is they have the Rams as the 6th seed in the NFC. They have the 49ers 1, Packers 2, Eagles 3, Falcons 4, Lions 5, Rams 6, and they got the Bears at 7. Yeah. They got the Packers as the conference champions. You got the Packers winning the NFC. In the AFC, you've got the Chiefs at 1, the Jets at 2, Colts at 3, Bengals at 4, Bills at 5, Jaguars at 6, Browns at 7. And they've got the Jets coming out of the AFC. They got the Jets and Packers in the Super Bowl. What is this, Super Bowl 59? Do you see the Jets beating the Chiefs? If you were going to beat the Chiefs, last year was the year to beat the Chiefs. the Chiefs are going to have to lose Patrick Mahomes, right? They're going to have something seriously go wrong. They drafted Xavier Worthy. They signed Hollywood Brown. They actually, as of right now, still have Rashee Rice. They got Isaiah Pacheco. They brought back their studs on defense. I mean, this is a great Chiefs team. I don't know how you project the Jets to go past them in the postseason. Don't see it. Don't see it at all. And I don't see the Packers going. I think it's going to be Rams, Lions, or 49ers out of the NFC. I think the Packers are still a year away. I'll get to your questions if you guys have any thoughts on that here in a second. Real quick here, let me run through this date in Rams history. On this date in 1981, the Rams traded Eddie Hill, former high-round draft pick of the Rams in 79 out of Memphis. I think he was second round. They traded him to the Dolphins for a fourth-round pick in 1983. That fourth-round pick in 83 was the 111th overall, and it turned out to be Doug Reed, defensive end out of San Diego State. Hill, on the other hand, played 6 seasons in the NFL. After 2 with the Rams, played 4 in Miami. He appeared in 2 Super Bowls, but he was kind of a huge bust in the NFL. He rushed for less than 500 yards, and that was it for him after the 84 season. Rams got 7 years. He played 7 years out of Reed, 6 years as a starter at defensive end. He only had 22 and a half sacks. There was nothing special about him, but the Rams got clicks out of Doug Reed. Doug Reed was a guy that was out there. Him, Greg Meisner, Gary Jeter, he was in that run there, and that was a solid defense for the Rams, and Reed was a contributor. So want to mention Doug Reed. Also, born on this day in 1983, he turns 41 today, Steven Jackson, a guy that deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And just imagine Steven Jackson playing now with the Rams. It's a killer. It's an absolute killer when you think about that. Okay, real quick, tomorrow, since we're not on the air, 1968, July 23rd, Rosie Greer officially retires from the Rams. He tore an Achilles tendon before the 67 season. He played in 66 for George Allen. He played 4 seasons with the Rams, never missed a game, and then tore his Achilles. And I think he had another injury going into 68, and he retired. And it's interesting when you think of Rosie Greer in July 23rd of 1968 retiring, he was about 7 weeks removed from being there at the assassination of Robert Kennedy at the Ambassador Hotel. And I was told that you could talk, because I got to speak to Rosie Greer's wife. I met his wife. I was offered a chance to speak to him, but this was a couple of years ago. Rosie Greer was signing autographs at the age of 90 in 90-degree heat at a Ram Fest thing out in Ontario. I was blessed because a guy named Henry Yep, who was a Rams photographer, invited me out there. And so I got to talk to his wife. And she shared with me, and again, I could never share this story enough. Rosie Greer did 2 long sessions signing free autographs at this thing, and coming out there in a walker. And because he said he feels fans are getting gouged for every dime, and he wants to give back to the fans. And this is a guy that's been retired, played his last football game in 66, in 1966. 58 years ago, he played his last football game. And and he's had a heck of a life. And yet he's giving back and signing. What a class act Rosie Greer is. But I was told in that conversation that the only thing you don't ask Rosie Greer about is when Bobby Kennedy was shot, because he was there. He was one of the guys that got Sirhan to the ground. What an amazing life. There really needs to be a biopic on Rosie Greer in terms of what he did with his life. What a great human being. Also in 1983, on July 23rd, the era of Pat Thomas came to the end. A second-round pick out of Texas A&M in 76 by the Rams. Traded to the Raiders for Monty Jackson. I believe Thomas failed his physical with the Raiders. I'll have to look that up. And the deal was void, but the Rams still acquired Jackson. They cut him. They brought him back. He appeared in 4 games for the Rams in 83. But that was the end of the line for Pat Thomas in the NFL. Played 7 seasons, 76 through 82. Also, tomorrow is the birthday of Brett Fariñez. He will be 59, an undrafted free agent out of San Diego State. Rams love those San Diego State guys. Monty Jackson was San Diego State. Doug Reed was San Diego State. Brett Fariñez was San Diego State. Fernier has played 7 seasons in the NFL, 4 of them with the Rams. Productive special teams guy, kind of a Captain Crazy type. But happy birthday to Doug Fernier, who turns 59 tomorrow. All right, let's take a look at a few of these questions that came in. Wow, you guys kind of hammered me with some questions. Good for you. Bill, how about Gary Green? He was a good DB. Yeah, he had 2 really good years for the Rams. Then he had that, I think it was a bulging disc in his neck, and I think that cost him his career. Remember, I think the Rams gave up a first-round pick in '84 to get him from the Chiefs. He was an all-pro with the Chiefs. Chiefs had some great DBs in the 80s. Gary Green, Albert Lewis, Eric Harris. They had Gary Barbaro, Daron Cherry at safety. They had some Lloyd Burris. They had some really good secondary people. Of course, the Chiefs always did, going back to Emmett Thomas and those guys and Sensabaugh and all those guys. Willie Bowen, Matthew Stafford over Lamar Jackson. Absolutely. Lamar Jackson doesn't have a Super Bowl ring. Can't agree with you anymore, Willie. Good job. Steve Ramirez, what do you think about Aikman-Lamar copyright feud over number 8? I'd say Troy with 3 rings. I'd say Troy too. I didn't know you could copyright a number. I didn't know that was possible. I'm going through copyright issues right now because my book, my original idea for the cover for my book, Game Day in the Ram Cave, it just intersected too much with copyright issues. That's why so the book's done. We're just trying to make sure the cover threads the needle where I'm not infringing on any copyright laws. So copyrights are funny things. G's nuts. I agree, Joe. Lamar is not a great quarterback. Great football players because he can run, but that's it. Mahomes is no joke, but I like my man Stafford. Have a feeling we are going deep this year. Preach, G's nuts. Preach. Yes. Willie Bowen. I picked Justin Herbert over Lamar Jackson. So would I. G's nuts. Stroud is someone to watch. Fully agree. Stroud was, and isn't it interesting that Stroud was the guy that said the guy that he watches is Matthew Stafford? That's pretty interesting. Tim Burns, Ram restricting teams holding camp in SoCal and not allowing them to promote them in their area is really funny. Yeah, it is kind of funny. I don't know what the Saints are doing here. It's like, what are you doing here, right? It's like, no one wants you, right? I don't want to see the Saints here, right? I don't want the Chargers here. But yeah, that is kind of funny. I'm glad the Rams are doing that. Let's see. G's nuts. I'm tired of that diva Aaron Rodgers. Jets will go 10-7 and lose in the first round. Willie Bowen, G's nuts. Jets won't even be 10-7. If he goes down, or if they lose Tyron Smith, or they lose Morgan Moses and those guys, it's going to be a tough year for the Jets. G's nuts. You're probably right, Willie. Either way, Rodgers is not taking them all the way. No, I don't see them taking them all the way at all. Tim Burns, if Stroud stays out of Texas massage parlors, Houston could be solid. I agree. I don't know how you couldn't pick Houston in the AFC South. I just don't. Especially, I know the Colts have done a good job acquiring talent, but you still got to find out if Anthony Richardson can play. What did he appear in 5 games last year, and he only finished 1? Is that what it was? I think it was. Yeah, I like Anthony Richardson, but yeah, I mean, right now it's Stroud is the star in that AFC South. He's even, I think, past Trevor Lawrence a little bit. G's nuts. Rams going 12-5, maybe 13-4. Yeah, that's kind of what we said, G's nuts. I think Mr. Burns and I were bouncing that back and forth. We said high end 13-4, low end 11-6. Yeah, a lot of those difficult games. Packers, Bills, Vikings. These games they're not on the road. They're here. Dolphins. They're here in LA, so they don't have to go on the road. Willie Bowen, cheese nuts, horns up. All right. USA expat, good to hear from you. Niners going down, too much hype, too much expectation, mostly based on last year. Yeah, I think it's a reach that they can do it again. Kittle was remarkably healthy last year, let alone McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, and Trent Williams. And if Trent Williams goes down, it's like that offensive line's like a Jenga thing, right? You pull out that one piece and it all comes collapsing down. I know they're worried there in Frisco. Let's see. Tim Burns still say Philly goes 8-9. I don't see them 8-9, but 9-8, maybe 8-9. Okay, I think they're a good team. I'm just not sold on Jalen Hurts. Isn't that weird? And I'm definitely not sold on Saquon Barkley. Let's see. Tim, glad you're back, JT. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Let me see what I got here. Here, I'll send you a $5 bill. There. Anyone wants to say, I'm glad I'm back, I'll send you a $5 bill. I just felt that right there. Thank you, guys. It's really good to be back. Geez nuts. That helmet behind you deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, this helmet is from one of those boxes you used to get when you were a kid, and they'd have a Ram jersey, and all the teams did it. And Ram jersey and a pair of pants and shoulder pads and stuff. And this belonged to the guy I write with at Mid-Valley Sports, because we used to do the Mid-Valley Sports show together, and this was his helmet for years. He allowed me to keep it for the Ram Cave, and so I can't sell that one. I can't sell that. I think that came with a number 44 Al Clark jersey. Willie Bowen, Rams big three, Kroenke, Snead, and McVay. Let's go 4. Stafford, 2. Tim Burns, I think San Diego State has the most amazing athletes. I wonder why, Mr. Burns. I wonder why. From what I understand, Mr. Burns, your knee is healing well, so good for you. Okay, wow, we did 45 minutes, and I was struggling, hoping to get to 30 today, but you guys joined me and answered questions. Thank you so much. I'm happy to stick around for a minute if you guys got anything else you want to share. I think we're in good shape. I think I can push this button.
It was a stone groove, my man.
I think we're doing good. My phone is blowing up, but it has nothing to do with sports right now, so that's okay. So I hope you guys are well. Give me a little grade. This week we'll be on the air every day, no sweat. Next week, believe it or not, I'm back at camp again, youth camp, and then I'll try to sneak in a couple of shows there. I can't say exactly when I'll be on because I got to take it when I can get it. And then after youth camp, I'm actually going to be on the road to Gettysburg. It's vacation. My brother and I, we're going to spend 3 weeks on the road, and we're driving to Gettysburg. And I'm going to put my laptop, and I will not be in the Ram Cave. I'll be in a hotel in Gettysburg. I'm going to see Steeler fan Rob in Missouri. So I might be doing a podcast from his place and some places on the road. So it won't be the same, but I hate to be out of touch for so long, especially when I'm on the road in August. That's when preseason is going to start. Okay, let's see. I think we're good. Tim Burns, I will be spinning discs in no time. Knee is good. Good for you, man. Good for you, Mr. Burns. Willie Bowen, you think the Rams will draft players from USC and UCLA in the NFL draft? Well, I think one thing is clear is that USC and UCLA maybe better look to a different type of player if they're going to compete in the Big Ten, right? It's going to be different, right? It's going to be different. I'm anxious for the college football season. I'm kind of sorry about the Pac-12, but I am looking forward to that. But that number surprised me. There's only 7 players on the Rams roster with Pac-12 experience or a Pac-12 background, and 4 of them were 2 of them were either drafted, and 3 of them were undrafted free agents that signed this year. And only Colby Parkinson and Quentin Lake have NFL experience. That blew me away. That really blew me away. Okay, so hopefully we'll have a little more Ram-centric news on Wednesday, and we'll talk about some position stuff and everything like that. We'll again look at the schedule. We'll break down the 49ers a little bit. So I think we're good. All right, guys. God bless. Take care. Thank you for hanging out with me. You made it for me on this hot day. Bye-bye.